Hi, welcome to SohoMD Insider. I'm Caroline, the HR director for Soho Medical Doctors.
And I'm Falana, one of our HR generalists. And today we are interviewing one of our therapist supervisors, Roman. Hello, Roman.
Hello. Hi, Roman. It's so nice to have you, Roman. We're super excited. You were tagged in by Sarah Clark, so you were tagged into this. And we're just super excited to kind of go over a little bit more about your experience here at SohoMD. So, Roman, let's start with this. Number one, how long have you been here?
So I've been at SohoMD for a little bit more than 4 years at this point. For the first 2 years, I was a therapist, and then I was promoted to the position of the clinical supervisor. And I've been the clinical supervisor for over 2 years now as well.
And why did you choose SohoMD? What about us stands out from our competitors?
So it's interesting that you asked that question, because I can tell you that since I've been here, for quite some time, SohoMD has improved a lot and has grown a lot. Originally, I was actually referred by one of my friends who was working at SohoMD, and she told me about how amazing the people were at SohoMD, the kind of people that SohoMD was working with. And she told me that, Roman, I really think that this is the company that you can go very far with. They're like, this is the company that will grow and will continue to expand. And because I told her at that time that I'm looking for a company that I want to grow with. I want to stay in one company and I want to go far and I want to experience and learn new things. And she was like, I think this is really the place for you to do it. So, then she told me about it and I applied and I was lucky enough to be accepted.
Oh, that's awesome. That's super awesome. Roman, if you can recall, do you remember that onboarding process? I know it's 4 years ago, but
sure.
Bring me back.
No problem. So the onboarding process was actually pretty painless compared to other instances that I heard. So obviously I spoke to HR, we got all the documents in, and they were very patient, they were very helpful, because there was some stuff where I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I remember I was working with Asia at that time, and I was like, oh my god, this Asia person is probably so annoyed at me, because I was like, where do I find this information? She was like, oh, don't worry about it, just look it here. And I was like, okay, great. So she was, like I said, the HR department, especially Asia at that time, was very kind, very patient with me. When I finally got on board and I started shadowing and I started learning directly from Robin. So Robin was my supervisor that I started with and I have been with. I shadowed her sessions. She was very patient with me. She explained to me everything, how we do things. She showed me how we do things, and obviously also had the training with T&D. They were also very patient and showed me the more on the technical side. And with Robin, obviously this was my first teletherapy job. So I remember Robin kind of giving me tips and tricks. And the most important thing she was like, just remember to relax. This is just like any other therapy. You've done this before. You have the necessary skills. You just need to translate them into teletherapy. But here are just a few things that you might want to be able to keep on your mind. So from HR to the clinical aspect to the technical aspect, it was a very smooth kind of onboarding process, and it was very supportive. Yeah, it was a very supportive process, you can call it.
That's awesome. We're very happy to hear that. That's what we aim for. So now that you're a supervisor, how would you compare conducting group interviews to one-on-one interviews?
So one-on-one interviews and group interviews are definitely different, and they both have their pros and cons. I like group interviews better, because I also kind of like hearing what other people say and other thoughts are. Obviously, you can say like, oh, you like other people's thoughts, so you can steal their ideas. Yes, obviously, we always want to get the best ideas from the best sources. But at the same time, I feel that it's a lot more, at least in my instance, the way I feel it, it's a lot more relaxed. It's a lot more friendly, especially the way we do interviews here at SohoMD. As a person who does the interviews, it's always more kind of like a chat of like, hey, let's kind of talk about, why do you want to be a therapist? Why do you enjoy being a therapist? What kind of work setting and things that you're looking for? What is it that you actually enjoy about this job, and why do you want to be able to do it? Because, like anyone will tell you, being a therapist is not the easiest job. So therefore, there has to be a certain aspect of like, hey, this is what I want to do, and hey, I know what I'm kind of getting myself into, right? So I think that by being able to create that kind of environment, it usually helps people kind of come out of their shell. And I know one-on-one interviews can be really scary. I remember my interviews one-on-one, I was nervous as hell, and I was like, oh my God. And then my one-on-one interview was even worse because I don't know why, but the timing was so bad, is that my first interview was with Robin. And I remember talking to her on the phone, and for some unknown reason, that day they decided to mow the lawn at that time, and that was the only time they changed times. It was normally a different time, and for some unknown reason they decided to do it 2 hours early that day. And I'm like sitting there like next to the window, right, and they start mowing the lawn, and I get so nervous. I'm like, holy crap, Robin's gonna think like there's always loud here and this is not conducive to teletherapy. So I started panicking, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna flood her with questions so she doesn't notice the sound in the background. And it had the opposite effect, because and then it just seemed like I was just like asking nonstop questions, and it seemed like I was like more on the aggressive side. But then that was what it was. I was like, holy crap, I just hope she doesn't hear the sounds outside. So it was a really, really funny situation of how like my panic completely changed it differently, but
well,
I was
Roman,
lucky enough to be hired.
It worked out anyway. You were
Exactly.
hired. Noise and all, it worked out.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that was a vulnerable time. So going into vulnerability, because that is big in our company, we really do like to understand vulnerability and really rumbling with, what is it? Rumbling. We learned this from Brené Brown. And if Antoinette was here, she would remember it.
Rumbling with vulnerability.
Yes, rumble. Thank you, Falada. Thank you. See, thank you, Falada. So rumbling with vulnerability. I wanted to ask you, as a supervisor, what does it look like as a supervisor to show like when you feel vulnerable? What does that look like?
Sure. So I think that as a supervisor, there's two aspects of it, right? And I think it's actually really interesting. Is that when I lead group supervisions, or when I still lead them, even when I lead them now, or I meet with individually, but I think it applies more for group supervision aspects of it, is that sometimes, obviously, we discuss different clinical cases, we discuss things that we could have potentially done differently or done better. I try to show my vulnerability through saying like, hey, I'm having a hard time with this patient, right? Or, hey, I'm having a difficult time with this thing. Or like, hey, I think I could have handled this situation a bit better. And I show my vulnerability by showing that even though I'm a supervisor, it doesn't mean that I have all the answers, right? It still means that I still have difficult moments, right? As a supervisor, obviously, I'm still a therapist. So obviously, I still, see patients. And it's kind of showing that just because you're a supervisor doesn't mean that I know all the answers and I know everything perfectly, right? And sometimes, hopefully, what the hope is that by showing that you're not perfect, and that sometimes you still struggle, and sometimes you might have questions about certain aspects of things, that allows other people to go like, hey, if he's not perfect, I don't have to be perfect either, right? That's at least that's the hope that I come off across as from a supervisory aspect, as a supervisor myself, right? So I have obviously I have my own supervisor, who's Robin, the director of behavioral health here. So SohoMD is actually the first time I've been a supervisor. I've never been a supervisor before. I was, like I said, I was lucky enough to be promoted here to a clinical supervisor. So obviously there was a learning process, and I feel the learning process is always. So I still have weekly supervision with Robin, where I'm like, hey, Robin, this thing happened. Can you help me out? What could have been a better way to like kind of do this thing? I'm like, oh, I have these questions about this thing. Can you kind of teach me, or can you tell me what's going on? Is that I feel that just because you have a certain position in a company does not mean that there is no space to learn and to improve and to be better. So that's kind of the way my vulnerability shows.
I love that, Roman. Thank you for sharing that. And you're absolutely right. Sharing a part of what you're struggling with, it also inspires others to know, well, Roman too can struggle, and I can actually provide resources and insight to a patient for Roman. So I love that. I love that you do that with the group. Falana, I know we have so many other questions for Roman. I'm going to have you tap into some more.
Yes, absolutely. I know that you've talked about your relationship with Robin a little bit, which we love to see. We love a good relationship with your supervisor and having that support. But what would you say your favorite part of working at SohoMD is?
how much time do we have? Because this is an extended answer.
Go ahead.
All right, so all right, I guess we'll just go point by point on this one. The first thing is, so I actually love working with my coworkers, my clinical supervisors, Stephanie Vitale, Denise Molina, and Elise Denorfia. They're extremely intelligent. They're very smart. They're very capable. They're very supportive, and I know I can always count on them because obviously there are situations where I'm like. No idea what to do here. And for example, like, we always kind of talk about stuff, and I've been learning from them a lot as well. They're very experienced supervisors, and I'm lucky enough to be able to work with them and learn a lot from them. And they've became my friends as well at this point. So I feel very, very, kind of very supportive. So I love that kind of dynamic. I love the fact that, Robin is my supervisor and that we still meet weekly, and that I learn from her, that she kind of expands my views on things, that, she helps me grow. And she is always there kind of, step by step with me of going like, hey, what are your future goals? Where do you see yourself going? How can we help you get there, right? And that kind of also transitions to what I also love about other parts of the company, is a kind of specifically talking about Dr. J, is that there's this open mind at SohoMD of like, hey, we can do things better. Just because there's a certain status quo of how things are done does not mean that we can't push it further. So, and what I mean by this is, I mean this by us creating different projects, by us exploring new way to do things, with us going like, just because this is the standard, that doesn't mean this is the best way that things can be done. And Dr. J's kind of perspective, and it kind of trickles down to the directors and kind of trickles down lower, is this idea of like, challenging the status quo to see if we can do things better, because obviously at SohoMD we want to be the best that we can at things we do. So therefore, but in order to really have that kind of, and I guess this also kind of goes into the culture of SohoMD, is this culture of like, any idea is a good idea. Just throw out the idea. See, let's go with it. Let's see what happens. Like, hey, this sounds like a great idea. Let's see how we can apply it to help everybody we work with, regardless of whether it's staff or whether it's the patients that we work with. And this freedom and this flexibility and this wanting to not be stagnant in bad ways, but wanting to improve things, is probably some of the things that I love the most about SohoMD. Is this idea of change is good. Change is okay. We like change. We want to be better, and we want to improve how we do things, because at the end of the day, the people we help are people who want help, and they want help, and they need that help. So if we're not doing our best to improve the way we do things, then we're doing a disservice to them.
Mm-hmm. Well said, Roman. Absolutely well said. You tapped into the culture, so I'm just going to kind of ask you an additional question. What would you give an advice, like what kind of advice would you give to a new candidate coming into SohoMD?
The one thing I always tell everybody is, when they come to SohoMD, is A, be prepared for the amount of support you're going to get. B, ask questions, right? Please ask questions. Like, I hear this sometimes of like, I don't know if this is the right question to ask my supervisor because it seems like a dumb question. There's no such thing. Like, I prefer if you ask me 1,000 questions when you start with me, so I can help you, and so I can answer these questions, so I can work with you, so you can be ready to be able to succeed, right? From a perspective of, kind of a coach, and also from a perspective of a supervisor, is that I am here to help you so you can do the best job that you can. My job is to support you and help you on your way to be the best therapist that you can, in whichever way it is, right? It's like, my job is to make sure you do your job very well, and make sure that you like it, and make sure that you want to do your job, right? It's that sometimes I found the problem is that someone might love a profession, might love a certain job, but then they go into a certain company, and that company destroys how they view that job. I definitely don't want that place to be at, SohoMD. So I want people to do their job well, want to do their job, want to continue doing their job, and enjoy doing their job. Right? It's kind of it's that. So it's important to have that honest conversations and honest feedback with your supervisors, of ask questions and then be like, hey, I don't really get this, or be like, hey, this thing's really not working out. How can we do this differently? Or like a common question sometimes that we get is that when people start doing documentations, they're like, hey, this documentation is really not flowing the way I would like it, right? And I'm like, I'm so happy you asked me. Let me show you the different ways that different people complete it, so we can find the way it fits you, right? Because obviously, even though that information that we're gathering is the same, the way you gather it can be a little bit different, so it flows to your style. So it's have that honest, have that honest feedback and have that kind of, that relationship with your supervisor, because if you don't tell us, we won't know.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
love it.
I think that's great advice for not even just SohoMD, like in any working relationship. Absolutely. So we like to ask a fun question, a would you rather question. So we try to have it to do with self-care a little bit. So this week's question is, would you rather take 30 minutes of time to exercise or do a little yoga, meditate in the morning, or take those 30 minutes in the afternoon and have a power nap?
That's a good question. I think afternoon. I like afternoon. With the morning, it's with my mindset is the way I start is that when I wake up in the morning, like, I have my routine, I get my coffee, get ready, and I'm like work mode. This is what I'm going to do now. This is what I'm scheduled for. This is the things that I want to get done. Like I have a little agenda on the side. I'm like, all right, these are the things I need to make sure that I complete today. And it's kind of like work mode. But then like when that afternoon hits, it's kind of like, you know what, a little power nap or a little bit energy is really useful to make sure you complete the day and you kind of keep going, especially with like, as a supervisor, like obviously you guys know we have different types of meetings, like one meeting here, one meeting here, one meeting here, go do this, go do that. So sometimes it almost feels like you're switching really quickly between things. And a power nap is that nice moment where you kind of slow down and you take a breath and you're like kind of slows you down and you get that energy to kind of continue going and finishing up your day.
I'm with you, Roman. I'm going to take that power nap because usually I'm going to do something else after that nap. So it depends on the day, though, because I could think about it. Falana, if you asked me that on August 9th, I'm going to tell you a power nap before I go to my Beyonce concert, Roman.
Have fun. Have fun.
It depends on the day, Roman. It depends on the day. Talking about Beyonce, what's your favorite band or artist? I'm curious.
I don't know. There's so many out there. So you see, the funny thing with my music, right, is that my music is completely all over the place. Like I will, like if you look at my playlist, it's like I'll have Mozart, I have Beethoven, then I have Jay-Z, then I have Nas, then I have Biggie, then I have Metallica. Then I'll have like other rock. It's like, so my music is literally all over the place. It's like I don't think I have artists, I have songs that I like. I think it's that way. And it also depends on like what you're doing, because like I'll have different music for like workouts and I have different music to kind of relax. Like for example, like when I'm doing, let's say, paperwork, like, and I'm like, all right, for the next hour or two I'm going to be doing paperwork, I'll put like table jazz or coffee jazz in the background, just kind of nice and smooth and relaxing beats, just so it kind of keeps me company but doesn't distract me. So like I said, honestly depends on the situation.
Roman, that is super cool that you said that, because when I'm studying for exams or anything like that, I actually play jazz or like the saxophone or something for whatever reason. It makes me focus. But if I'm going to the gym, I need something to turn up,
Exactly.
So
I'm right there with you on that one.
Falana, we can't leave you out. What's your favorite band or artist?
I think I resonate with Roman. Like I'm a little bit all over the place.
Yeah.
Like,
I love the
listen to country. I listen to hip hop. Yes. I listen to soul. I listen to it depends on how I feel. And I have a sleepy time playlist. I have a get up and do something playlist.
I love it. We love variety here. I totally agree. I think variety is beautiful. I think it matches with what we're feeling at the time. And I'm sure a lot of people could resonate with that for sure. Roman, I wanted to ask you, we asked Sarah to shout some people out, whether it would be our HVAs or whether it be, SohoMD staff members that are in the United States. Who would you like to shout out? Support staff, providers?
Okay, so definitely would want to, obviously shout out to my fellow clinical supervisors who are day in and day out with us and, help make the department run. So, obviously Stephanie Vitali and Lisa Norfia and Denise Molina, and obviously huge shout out to Robin. Yeah. Robin's obviously our director. She created our department. She makes it run. She has a grand vision for what it's going to come, and she makes it true. But most important, like on on the personal side, Robin has been one of the most influential people I've had in my career. Right? She kind of helped me become the therapist that I am. She helped me the supervisor that I am. She's always there, always on my side and always there to help. And it's a person that I can truly say that I trust and I know has my back and has shown it multiple times. And she, like I told you, it from the top, it trickles down. The reason why the therapy department feels so supported is because Robin shows us the way, and she shows it not only by, the things that she implements, but also the way she supports us, but also the way she is. Right. And it's so she, like I said, she makes the world go round, put it this way, for our therapy department.
I love that.
Obviously, like I said, there's plenty of shout outs to the other people that we work with. Is Mary has been my HVA for over 3 years. She's done a wonderful job. She keeps up with all my antics and always makes sure that everything runs on time. And like I said, helps me tremendously. I would other people that kind of in the other departments that I don't want to say that I leave someone out, but obviously people who I've worked closely with was like George, Adriana. They're always there. They're very much to help. They're obviously all of the HR staff. Antoinette has always been kind of very grounding and supportive presence in my life, and she always will talk things through me when needed. Obviously, Amy, the director of operations, she's there to help us. She's there to help as well. And I definitely would also want to, obviously give a shout out to Dr. J, because, not that I don't want to give out shout out to Dr. Ratush and the other, CEOs, but like I had the personal privilege and honor to kind of work with Dr. J on a bunch of different projects together. And obviously I'm always learning from him as well. And he's always there he will be there to call me out on stuff and just be like, hey Roman, so what happened here? Like sometimes we'll have a meeting and something else he goes like, and then afterwards he'll like call me or talk to me like, hey Roman, so what happened here? And then he'll just kind of ask, and with that kind of feedback, it also helps me grow. But also, by his presence, he shows that it's okay to want to grow, it's okay to want to more, and it's okay to want to be better.
Absolutely, Roman. So let's ask you the last, save the best for last. Who are you tagging in? You now have the power.
Oh, I know. So I'm gonna tag someone in, and he definitely doesn't see this coming, so that's what makes it best. I'm actually gonna tag in Jonathan Hernandez, one of our therapists.
Why Jonathan? Why are you putting Jonathan out there?
So I actually think that it would be really cool to get these ideas and questions and information from Jonathan, because Jonathan he's a really great therapist. He's very kind, he's very caring. Like when he talks in group supervisions, you can see he has a lot of clinical knowledge. He's really good at what he does. And so I just wanna promote that out there, because I know he's been with us for a while, and he's like, when he talks, it's amazing, and he does talk, right? But usually he's a little bit more on the quiet side. So I wanna really get him out there.
I love that. So Jonathan, you are next. We're super excited to meet with you, Jonathan. Roman, thank you. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much for the insights. Thank you. I love that you're a team player. You have always been a team player. You look to see how can you help always. And then you also try to look to see how can you help other people grow. You're not just looking for your individual growth. You're looking for your teams. And I'm not just talking about your teams in terms of just therapy. You do that with everybody in every single department in your interactions. So thank you so much for your dedication. And it was super nice to hear from you today. We're excited. Falana, again, thank you. This is our second episode now of SohoMD Insider, and we'll see you next time with Jonathan Hernandez.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate this time.
Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Thank you for watching.